Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. All right, we're going to get on to chapter one. Again, I'll warn you that there may be noise in the background here at my home office, and my puppies are running loose, and I have a contractor downstairs. But with that, we will make it through this chapter one review. Okay, I have here first talk to the class as though they were CEOs, and some maybe more than one of you already are CEOs, chief financial officers, chief operating officers, etc. My point being is, as we move along in these chapters, I'll be talking to you as though you're already in the executive management level. Now, remember, for strategic management, it's working with all levels, but in particular, the management. What's the word I want to use? The strategy is often being formed there at the top levels, the executive levels. And of course, we have our executive levels, we have our middle management, and then of course we have our first line supervisors. All are important to carrying out the strategy that's put together. Okay, now let me move on here. Reminder: you have four major resources. You have your human resource, you have a material resource, you have your financial resource, and which one am I forgetting? Let's see, info. So you have material, info, human, and financial resources. These are the four major resources you have at your fingertips, especially when you're looking at any type of project and you need to make an assessment of how you're going to move forward. But before we start getting into the nuts and the bolts, let me just ask you, from your readings, what did you get out of strategic leadership? I'd be curious to see what some of the feedback will be through either the questions or the assignments. The textbook answer is, as I'm looking at my notes, the textbook answer is that strategic leadership involves vision. Oftentimes we hear that leaders are visionaries. They're people who can, look at an organization, for example, look at an organization and realize to stay on the cutting edge, to stay ahead of your competitors. A strategic plan has to be put in place. It doesn't just happen because you're wonderful. So you have to be able to sit down with your experts through different departments and sit down and put together your strong strategic uh, planning process. And again, strategic leadership involves vision, designs. It says here, designing strategic actions. That's a key word, to achieve the vision by empowering others to carry out the actions. Beautifully defined. The mission. The mission defines the firm's core intent. And that says here, which is the business environment in which it intends, or from within the business environment it intends to compete. So as I move on here with my notes, I have here the vision equals mission, which describes the firm's DNA, and the vision of what the business might look like in the future, which I touched on a couple of seconds ago. They're usually, the leaders in this strategic management process, planning process, are looking 10, 20 years out. As was also identified in your textbook. Effective strategic leaders develop visions of the future, but also, I love this, taken from your textbook, inspire stakeholders to commit to achieving this strategic plan. All right. It says here from your textbook also, which I'll be referring to often here during the lectures, is your textbook. To be most effective, strategic leaders need a management team of members who see and think differently. Think about that. If you surround yourself, or the organization surrounds itself with, yes, people who are not willing to take risk and speak up and talk about the obvious. Sometimes the obvious is when you're in a status quo and type of environment, the obvious isn't so obvious. So having people that are open-minded, willing to look at change, not just for the sake of change, but to look at change that would, because they see, let's take something like technology. They see the technology coming down the pipe and how that might be something that, one particular aspect that they might take advantage of. So I like that. Members who see and think differently. All right, let me switch my notes over to my next page here. Your textbook also went over in Chapter 1, Management Succession. It says here, strategic leaders must develop people who can succeed them. I see this in a small business, also in big business, but I also see it a lot in our small business when I'm dealing with my small business management class, is you get these small businesses and when the owner retires, the person who created the business retires, and often the business just ceases to be. Why? Because they hadn't put together a good succession plan, put something in place to help with that transition, whether it be family, whether it be the management staff that's there right now, which often happens, right, with your leverage buyouts. You oftentimes have management within an organization that would actually buy out and become the major stakeholders in the business and run the business themselves. So I see that a lot, and there's some similarities when I'm looking at big business, medium to big business, developing people who succeed them. It says here the majority of large business corporations select internally for their next CEO, and oftentimes even for their chief operating officers and chief financial officers. There's a lot of internal going on. However, organizations who are floundering, I like to say, like a fish out of water, it's more common to select an outside successor. Isn't that an interesting thought process? So that must lead to obvious success, right? More success. Well, interestingly not. It turns out through research, according to your textbook, the Writer's Review textbook, through research, it indicates that yes, external change may facilitate change, good, positive change, good change for the organization over time. But it's been shown that after about 3 years, successors selected from within the internal successors oftentimes outperform the external successors. Now, there could be a lot of factors having an impact here. I'm thinking also having an understanding of the organizational culture, having already built those bonds with your teams, your organizational teams. So I can see where the interior may have, it kind of makes sense where they may have sometimes an advantage. But at the same time, external CEOs coming in, there's been some history of some really good ones coming in and doing a good job too. They bring in new thought processes, new experiences that they're bringing to their new organization. So, but excuse me, overall, according to the writers, it seems like the internal selections and a larger percentage do a better job over time as far as having positive impact on their organization once the change has been made. Your textbook also talked about managing your resource portfolio. I just talked to you a few minutes ago about your four major resources, right? Your human resource, material resource, your information resources, and your financial resources. All are important. The human resources probably one of the, as far as I'm concerned, the most difficult resource to become an expert on, to become, to have that knowledge, because every person is unique, and having those skill sets to be able to form teams and they get everyone on board, as I said earlier, with strategic management is also part of the job, is to have your teams take actions to make their strategic planning a reality. So human resource, all the resources are important. The human resource is probably paramount, at least in my book. Okay, it says here, managing your portfolio, your resource portfolio. Talked about intangible resources, which include, obviously, your human capital. And with your human capital, it says it includes knowledge and skills of those working for your organization. Social capital, interesting. It says here, it refers to, in my notes, it refers to the relationship among people working within your organization and Okay, so we have an internal-external component going on here too. And with the individual and organizations outside the firm. Think about that too. Think about those resources outside the firm. They could be your suppliers, having those type of relationships, or even with your investors. So yeah, they can add a lot to an organization and add a lot to ensuring the strategic plan is carried out. Your textbook also went into the entrepreneurial culture. Now you're talking, you're talking, we're talking together. But through this lecture, I am very, very pro-entrepreneur. Within big business, as I teach in my entrepreneurship classes and my small business management classes, in the big business, the corporations and the large corporation structures, entrepreneurial cultures are, you have four major cultures. Right? You have your entrepreneurial, your marketing, your clan, and your bureaucratic. Oftentimes, you see a lot of these large corporations fall into the bureaucratic culture, and it kind of bogs down creativity and innovation. So, maintaining that entrepreneurial culture, or even maybe instilling an entrepreneurial culture, depending on what your organization looks like when you enter, it really takes a lot of talent. And one of the things it says here in my notes, it says it allows employees within this type of culture to identify and exploit new opportunities. That's incredible, to exploit new opportunities. Not just to identify, from the old Lost in Space, danger, danger, Will Robinson. Just like, okay, we have something not working right over here, but let me exploit the opportunities to turn this into our favor as an organization. Now, the textbook also talks about effective controls, and I often talk again about this in my small business classes. Is an entrepreneur in their own small business that they created. An entrepreneur is a risk taker, and whose money are they risking? Whose financial resource are they risking? Their own, for the most part. Oftentimes it's theirs, and maybe so a few close investors, which are oftentimes family members. Their investment is their money. Where we get into these large corporations, okay, we're talking entrepreneurial culture, but it's not so much entrepreneurs, it's intrapreneurs that are working within these organizations, and there has to be controls put in place, of course. It says here to ensure standards are met. All right, there's going to be standards met. So we can have an entrepreneurial culture with standards. Makes sense. Some people go, how can you be entrepreneurial culture if you have controls? Of course you're going to have controls. You just can't run amok. It can't be anarchy. And it says employees, you don't allow employees to misuse funds. Now, what is that? What am I talking about there? Just what I was talking about a couple minutes ago. You have, in the small business, the entrepreneurs are using their equity. In the big business and corporations, obviously the entrepreneurs are using the money of the organization, the retained earnings, the earnings within the organization, their cash flow. So yeah, you probably need to have a little bit tighter controls on that, because you want to make sure that the resource, in particular financial resources, are often at times very scarce. You want to make sure they're used correctly and used in a sense that works most advantageously to the organization. I think all of you, probably for the most part, can agree. Anyway, it was a great chapter talking about your missions, mission statement, or your mission of an organization, the visions of the organization. I think I enjoyed the chapter. I think that a lot of you will find that it's an easy read in this textbook. I'm looking over here to the side of my textbook. It was one of the best, if not the best, textbook I could find dealing with strategic management. I really enjoyed it. Anyways, that'll end our Chapter 1 lecture. Again, if you have questions, please be proactive. Get a hold of me. Don't be reactive. Be proactive, just like a strong strategic manager would do in an organization. So I look forward to our next lecture. Jim out.